Hello, YouTube, and welcome back to VHS. I'm your host, Jesse, and today we're solving a problem. There are just too many classic movies out there. How are we supposed to know which movies from film history are worth picking up this far into the future? Well, luckily for you, I have walked the sands of film history, and I've returned with recommendations from every year. My favorite film overall, my favorite comedy, my favorite thriller horror, and a deep cut you can use to impress your friends. We're starting with the wild and wacky 1980s. So hop in the time machine with me, won't you? It's VHS Recommends 1980. All right, off rip, we're going with my favorite movie overall from 1980. We're going to knock out a couple honorable mentions and then give you the big reveal. First, I have to mention Raging Bull. Already covered, I've talked about it a lot on the Scorsese tier list. This film is clearly a monumental achievement for a young Martin Scorsese. But at the end of the day, it's far too callous and toxic of a story for me to really recommend it to you with any joy in my heart. You know what I mean? So it's a classic and we know that, but it's not going to be my personal recommendation for the year. Next up, Ordinary People. This is a beautiful and sad movie about a family dealing with grief. Donald Sutherland is incredible. Timothy Hutton, very young Timothy Hutton, wins an Oscar for his performance in this. So it's great. I get it. It's worth watching. But really, the shocker of all the performances is Mary Tyler Moore, the famous TV comedian, as the very unfunny mom in this situation. She's very deep and intense. It's wonderful. They're all great. But the truth is, this kind of family sob story has been told so many times. You've seen it, probably multiple times. So I don't know that you need to go back and see Ordinary People. Still a great movie. The Empire Strikes Back. Empire is not just the best movie in the Star Wars film franchise. You're welcome to fight me in the comments. It's actually one of the best films made in 1980 overall. It's the best war movie of the year. It's easily the best science fiction fantasy film of the year. And because it's directed by Irvin Kershner and not George Lucas, you actually end up with some great human performances. But my favorite film of 1980 that I recommend above all others is Michael Apted's Coal Miner's Daughter, starring Sissy Spacek. Spacek was already in Badlands at this point. She'd already done Carrie, and she was in this great deep cut by Robert Altman called Three Women with Shelley Duvall. If you find that, it's great. But this is the movie where she becomes a superstar. She takes the titular role of Loretta Lynn in Coal Miner's Daughter. She wins the Oscar, and from here on out basically becomes Sissy Spacek in all caps for the rest of our life. But it's not just the amazing performances. I recommend this because you should get into Michael Apted. Michael Apted is one of the most versatile filmmakers that we have in like the Hall of Fame level of filmmakers, right? He's famous for the 7-Up documentary series, right, where he followed the kids' lives every 7 years. He directed Gorillas in the Mist, Thunderheart. He directed a Bond movie, a Narnia movie, and Enough with Jennifer Lopez. Remember Enough? It was basically Sleeping with the Enemy, but with Jennifer Lopez. I mean, what more do you want from one guy? Over, 5, almost 6 decades now of filmmaking? Incredible. All right, favorite comedy. Start off with a couple honorable mentions. The Blues Brothers. I don't like the Blues Brothers. I don't get the Blues Brothers, but I will freely admit it's because no one showed it to me as a kid. I didn't have any relatives quoting it, walking around telling me, how come you haven't seen Blues Brothers? So I never did. But I do have it on good authority from trusted sources like producer Craig that if you did grow up with it, it is a heavily beloved movie. So go out and give it a shot. Maybe you will love it. Maybe you will totally get Blues Brothers and the movie will end and the credits will start rolling and you'll sit there and you'll have a tear in your eye and you'll think, poor Jesse, he just doesn't get Blues Brothers. He's so alone in the world. That'd be all right. Okay, now Caddyshack I did see as a kid. A lot. And I can definitely give this classic a recommendation. It may not have as many jokes as even I think it did, but what it does have is attitude. A lot of fun attitude from the young actors working at the golf course among all the rich people, right? F the man, eat the rich. Plus, somebody throws a Baby Ruth candy bar in the pool and chaos ensues. Throw in some memorable bits from a young Bill Murray and a sane Chevy Chase. That's value. But my number one comedy that I have to recommend from 1980 is, of course, Airplane. I recommend Airplane purely on how hilarious it is, even to a modern viewing. But it's also important to watch Airplane because of how fundamental it is to the subgenre of comedy known as the spoof. You like Scary Movie? Doesn't exist without Airplane. You one of those people still trying to convince me that Not Another Teen Movie is really clever? Well, that doesn't exist without Airplane. You like Mel Brooks? All right, he came first. Either way, whether you're pretending not to be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or you're advertising Scientology outside the airport, or you do in fact speak jive, Airplane is my number one recommendation from a 1980 comedy. All right, let's get into the favorite thriller horror films from 1980. Start off with my honorable mentions here. Mad Max, number one honorable mention. Mad Max is not even really a movie, you know what I mean, when you think about it. It's not much of a script, and the people in it don't even feel like they're acting, because Mad Max is a nightmare, fully rendered on film. It's a raw, unpolished experience that I honestly, it's the kind of thing you can't really find anymore. Unless you get your recommendations right here at VHS. The Shining. All right, The Shining doesn't really need my help. This is a fully enshrined horror classic. But can I take a quick moment to emphasize the depth of this story? If you've read the novel, you remember that Jack's alcoholism is much more front and center in the story. And while the movie strips some of that away, it keeps its focus on a tangential fear, that being self-destruction in general, and how it takes down everyone in your life with you. And on top of that, it's told through a lens of a beautiful, terrifying, Baroque ghost story. It's The Shining, dude. My personal recommendation for a thriller horror film from 1980 is George C. Scott in The Changeling. You guys ever see The Changeling? I had to be shown this. I was way old, and someone who just happened to be actually a lover of horror movies was like, couldn't believe that I hadn't seen it. To them, it was very fundamental. And now I kind of feel that way. So this is 1980, George C. Scott. He plays a music teacher whose family dies in a car crash. And he takes up residence sometime afterwards in this abandoned mansion, I think in like Seattle. Now, the mansion's haunted, and it has nothing to do with him. It's not because of him. He's not haunted. He just has coincidentally come to this haunted place and gets wrapped up in this decades-old ghost story that really doesn't involve him, but he can't let it go. So much work is done with sound and with special effects, not meaning like CGI visual effects. I mean like the house moving, the shutters moving, you know what I mean? The living parts of the house with the music and him being isolated in the house. It is one of the more scary experiences you can have without having to really see any intense modern horror, you know what I mean? Watch it with the lights off and the sound up. I dare you, you won't. The Changeling. All right, here comes my deep cut recommendation from 1980. And we're going to run through a bunch of little, very quickly, little honorable mentions, because I could not believe when I got to researching this how many wacky, weird little nuggets you can find in 1980. All right, here we go. Keep it quick. First, Xanadu, also known as How to Blow a Movie Budget on Cocaine in 3 Easy Steps. Next up, The Apple, also known as How to Be More Coked Out Than Xanadu. Popeye. Fucking Robin Williams and Shelley Duvall running around this unreal film set directed by Robert Altman. What the hell happened here? Neil Diamond remade The Jazz Singer in 1980. That's right, film nerds. The Jazz Singer from 1927, the very first film to feature sync sound. And Neil Diamond thought, I'm gonna do that in 1980. I don't know why he said that. I don't know why they did this, but it's not bad. Where the Buffalo Roam. Did you know that there was another movie about Hunter S. Thompson? And did you know that Bill Murray played Hunter S. Thompson in that movie, and that his Dr. Gonzo was played by a wild-haired Peter Boyle? Did you know that? Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go check it out. I'll wait. And now my actual recommendation for a 1980 deep cut. So some is not maybe a deep cut, but if you haven't heard of this, you really haven't heard of this. The film is Altered States. This is Ken Russell, directing a script by Paddy Chayefsky, who wrote Network, okay? So we're dealing with some heady stuff here. I don't want to say too much because I really do want you to go out and experience this for yourself. The hook is basically William Hurt is studying different states of consciousness. And he starts combining a sensory deprivation tank with some really heavy psychotropic drugs to like further his experience and his diving into different layers of consciousness. And they start blending with reality, maybe. Okay, that's it. Say no more. Altered States, have to check it out. It's a real experience, a real kind of experience that no Hollywood studio would actually greenlight and expect an audience to understand and appreciate. So go back and find this one, would you? So there you have it. VHS recommends 1980. If you enjoyed the video, please take a minute to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. It means the world to us. And come join us in 1981. We live here, only on VHS. Take them home, Craig.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Oh, and please like and subscribe. Check out more of our videos. Leave a comment. Or don't. You do you.